Long before salmon was called a superfood, and long before a pharmacy stood on every corner, there was a different fish, small and silver, pulled from an ancient lake at dawn. It fed civilizations for thousands of years because it contains 3 times more vitamin B12 than salmon. Yet almost no one alive today knows its name or where God placed it in Scripture. By the end of this, you will. But I am not going to tell you what it is just yet. First, you need to see where it came from. You need to understand the world it fed and why it vanished from your table. Stay with me. Picture the Sea of Galilee just before dawn. The air is cool and the water is perfectly still. Mist hangs low over the surface like a thin white cloth. On the far shore, you can just make out the shape of a wooden boat rocking gently against a stone dock. In 1986, when a drought pulled the waterline back, 2 brothers found a boat buried in the mud along the northwest shore. It was carbon dated to the 1st century before Christ, a real fishing vessel from the time of Jesus, preserved in the lake bed for 2,000 years. You can see it today at Kibbutz Ginosar. This was not a place where people fished for sport. Fishing was survival. Every net cast before dawn was the difference between eating and going hungry. The people who lived along this lake depended on the water for one thing above all else: protein. The great Galilean fisherman and scholar Mendel Nun spent 50 years on these shores. In 1993, he published his findings in the Biblical Archaeology Review. He described 3 main groups of fish that fed the people of this region: a large flat fish with a comb-shaped fin, a group of carp-like fish with barbs at the corners of their mouths, and then the smallest of the 3, a tiny silver fish caught by the tens of thousands every single night. This small fish was not glamorous. It was not rare. It was so common that even a child could carry 2 of them in a basket alongside 5 loaves of bread. But it was the backbone of the entire Galilean economy. It was salted and pickled in clay jars, shipped across the region, and eaten every single day by ordinary families trying to stay alive. And here is something most people never think about. The town where this fish was processed and preserved was a real place, a bustling center of commerce on the western shore of the lake. The Greek name for this town was Tarakeia. It means the place where fish are salted. You know this town by another name, Magdala, the hometown of Mary Magdalene. The historian Josephus recorded that 230 boats operated from this town alone. Now, your grandmother may not have lived on the shores of Galilee, but if she grew up in the Philippines or along the coast of West Africa or in the Caribbean, she knew this fish. She ate it whole, head and bones and all. She did not know the science behind it. She just knew it kept her strong. She was eating the same way people ate 2,000 years ago without ever reading a single verse about it. But the fish she ate and the fish that fed the people of Galilee are hiding something extraordinary in their bones, something your doctor never mentioned and the supplement industry hopes you never find out. The fish is the sardine, the Kinneret sardine of the Sea of Galilee, and its larger companion, the musht, a freshwater tilapia that locals have called St. Peter's fish for centuries. These are the fish of the New Testament, not imported, not exotic, just the daily meal of everyone who lived around that lake. In the Gospel of Matthew chapter 14, verses 17 through 21, a boy brings 5 loaves and 2 small fish to feed a crowd of 5,000. Scholars at the Associates for Biblical Research and the archaeologist Mendel Nun agree. Those 2 small fish were almost certainly sardines, the staple food of Galilee, small enough to carry, common enough to be unremarkable, and yet powerful enough to feed a multitude. In Matthew chapter 17, verse 27, Jesus tells Peter to go to the sea and cast a hook. The first fish he catches has a coin in its mouth. That fish was the musht, the tilapia, a species that carries objects in its mouth to protect its young. A fish so connected to Peter that it still bears his name today. Now, when most people hear the word sardine, they picture a dusty tin in the back of the pantry. And when they hear tilapia, they think of a bland frozen fillet wrapped in plastic at the grocery store. Those reactions are understandable, but they are also the reason most people are missing one of the most nutritionally complete foods God ever put in the water. This fish was everywhere in the ancient world. Jesus multiplied it with his own hands. An entire industry was built around preserving it. So why is nobody eating it today? And why is your doctor still telling you to eat salmon instead? Here is where it gets interesting. Remember what I said at the beginning of this video, 3 times more vitamin B12 than salmon. Let me show you why that number matters. Vitamin B12 is what keeps your nervous system working. It is what gives you energy. It protects your memory. It helps your body make red blood cells, and after the age of 50, your body starts absorbing less of it from food. That is when the fatigue begins, the brain fog, the tingling in your hands and feet. Most people blame it on getting older, but for many it is simply a deficiency they never knew they had. One serving of sardines, roughly 100 green, or one small can, delivers 373% of your daily B12 requirement. That is according to the United States Department of Agriculture Food Database. The same amount of salmon delivers about 117%. Both are good, but sardines deliver more than 3 times as much, and that is just the beginning. When you eat sardines whole with those soft edible bones, you are getting 382 milligrams of calcium in a single serving. A review published in Frontiers in Nutrition in 2023 confirmed this. 100 grams of sardines delivers the same calcium as nearly 2 full glasses of milk. Salmon fillet gives you roughly 7 to 15 milligrams. That is not a small difference. That is 50 times more calcium from the sardine. Think about that for a moment. 50 times. Picture your kitchen counter. Line up 50 salmon fillets on one side, 1 tin of sardines on the other. The sardines win on calcium every time. Iron. Sardines contain 2 milligrams per 100 gram. Salmon contains about 0.38 milligrams. That is nearly 8 times more iron from a fish most people will not even look at. And mercury, the one thing your doctor warns you about when it comes to eating fish. The FDA Mercury Monitoring Program found that sardines have a mercury concentration of 0.003 parts per million. That makes them one of the 5 lowest mercury fish ever measured. Sardines sit at the bottom of the food chain. They do not accumulate toxins the way large predatory fish do. Now think about this. A single can of wild-caught sardines costs about $2. A pound of fresh salmon costs $12 to $15 at the grocery store. You are paying 7 times more for a fish that gives you a fraction of the calcium and a fraction of the iron and a third of the B12. That is not nutrition. That is marketing. Your grandmother did not fall for it. She ate small fish whole the way God designed them to be eaten, and she got everything her body needed without spending a dime she did not have. But the sardine is only half of this story. Because the other fish, St. Peter's fish, the tilapia that swam in the Sea of Galilee, has something no can of sardines can offer you. It can be raised in your own backyard. For thousands of years, small fish were the primary source of protein for coastal and inland communities across the Mediterranean, Africa, and Asia. They were cheap, abundant, full of nutrients, and could be preserved without refrigeration. A family did not need wealth to eat well. They only needed a net and a jar of salt. Then came industrialization. Commercial fishing scaled up to target the large, profitable species, tuna, cod, and salmon. Small fish like sardines and anchovies were quietly reclassified, not as food for people, but as feed for animals. They were ground into fish meal, pressed into pellets, and fed to farmed salmon raised in floating pens off the coast of Norway and Chile. The modern food system took the most nutritious fish God put in the water and turned them into animal feed. Meanwhile, the salmon industry spent billions on marketing. Salmon became the health fish, the prestige protein, the one your doctor recommended by name. And the sardine was pushed to the bottom shelf of the grocery store, the tiny fish that had fed civilization since before King Solomon built the temple. Almost nobody looks at it now. It is not a conspiracy. It is just what happens when profit decides what you eat instead of wisdom. The fish that fed the people of Galilee and the fish Jesus multiplied with his own hands was quietly forgotten. A farmed fillet took its place. But here's the thing. The sardine was never gone. It is still sitting on that shelf. It is still swimming off the coasts of Portugal and Morocco and the Philippines. And St. Peter's fish, the tilapia, is still alive. In fact, it might be the easiest fish in the world to raise yourself. The knowledge was never lost. It was just forgotten. And today you are going to bring it back. But before I show you how, I want you to see something. It is early morning on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. The sky is just beginning to lighten. The water is flat and gray. 7 men are in a boat, tired, wet, and discouraged. They have been fishing all night and caught nothing. Their hands are raw from the nets. The wood of the boat is damp and cold beneath them. A figure stands on the shore. They do not recognize him at first. He calls out across the water and tells them to cast the net on the right side of the boat. They do, and the net fills so heavily with fish that they cannot haul it in. Peter knows. He jumps into the water and swims to shore. And there on the beach beside a small charcoal fire, the risen Christ is cooking breakfast. Fish laid across the coals, bread warming on a flat stone next to the flames, the smell of smoke and roasting fish drifting across the water. This is the scene described in the Gospel of John, chapter 21, verses 9 to 13. Jesus, risen from the dead, does not sit on a throne. He does not deliver a sermon. He kneels beside a fire on a beach and grills fish for his friends. The fish is tilapia, mushed, pulled from the same lake Peter had fished his whole life. The bread is the same flatbread made from the same grain that had fed this region for 1,000 years. And when he looked at them and said, "Come and have breakfast," he was not offering a symbol. He was offering a meal. Real fish, real bread, real fire. Every nutrient their exhausted, grieving bodies needed to keep going. That is who he was. He fed people. And the food he reached for was the simplest, most ancient, most nourishing thing the lake could give. Now let me give you something you can actually take home. There are 3 ways to bring this biblical fish back to your table. The first you can do today. The second takes a little more space. The third ties everything back to the soil. Start with the sardine. You do not need a boat. You do not need a lake. You need a can opener. Look for wild-caught sardines packed in water or olive oil. Look for the words with bones on the label. That is where the calcium lives. The ingredient list should be short: sardines, water, or olive oil and salt. If it lists more than 4 ingredients, put it back. Avoid sardines packed in soybean oil or vegetable oil. Those oils are high in omega-6, which works against the omega-3 you are trying to get. Eat them on whole grain toast with a squeeze of lemon. Mash them into a salad with olive oil and fresh herbs. Lay them on flatbread the way they would have been eaten in Galilee. Fish, bread, and oil. A can costs less than a cup of coffee and gives you a full serving of protein, omega-3, vitamin B12, calcium, and iron. People have been eating these for 3,000 years without a recipe. You do not need one either. Now, for those of you ready for the next step, you can raise St. Peter's fish in your own backyard. And it is simpler than you think. You need a tank, a 100-gallon stock tank, an IBC tote, or even a large, heavy-duty kiddie pool. Fill it with dechlorinated water. Add a simple air pump and an air stone for oxygenation. Then add your fish. Nile blue tilapia is the hardiest and most common variety for home raising. You can order fingerlings from aquaculture suppliers for about $1 to $3 each. Start with 10 to 20 fish in a 100-gallon tank. That gives each fish about 5 gallons of space, which is what they need. Tilapia are tropical fish. The water must stay above 55 degrees Fahrenheit. If you live in the Philippines, the Caribbean, Southeast Asia, or anywhere in the tropics, they will thrive outdoors year-round. Your grandmother may have already raised them this way. If you live in a cooler climate, a garage setup, a basement, or a small greenhouse will keep them warm enough. Feed them commercial fish pellets to start. But here is the part that ties it all together. Tilapia are omnivores. They will eat duckweed, which you can grow in a separate bucket for free. They will eat moringa leaves, kitchen scraps, lettuce, even algae. You can feed them from your garden and water your garden with their tank water because that water is full of nitrogen and phosphorus, the same nutrients your plants need to grow. God designed a closed loop. The fish feeds the garden feeds the fish. In 6 to 9 months, those fingerlings will reach 1-to-1 and 1-to-2 lbo. Harvest size, and here is the part that will stay with you. 1 pair of breeding tilapia can produce hundreds of fingerlings per year. You start with 10 fish, and by next year, you could have 100. St. Peter's fish multiplies in your backyard without a miracle. And then there is the third piece. Grow the herbs that go with the fish. In the ancient world, fish was never served alone. It was always prepared with herbs. Dill, which some translations of Matthew chapter 23, verse 23 render as anise. Cumin, which the prophet Isaiah described in chapter 28, verses 25 through 27. Hyssop, mentioned throughout Scripture from Exodus to John, chapter 19, verse 29. Plant dill seeds a quarter-inch deep in a 10-inch pot. Give it 6 hours of sun and water every 2 to 3 days. You will see sprouts in 10 to 14 days. Your first harvest comes in 6 to 8 weeks. Dill self-seeds freely, so plant it once and it comes back on its own. Hyssop is a perennial. It grows in zones 3 through 9. It is drought-tolerant once established, perfect for a container on a porch or a balcony. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it. That is Genesis chapter 2, verse 15. God did not just plant a garden. He filled the waters, he seeded the herbs, and he gave us the hands to tend them. Raising fish and growing the herbs that go with it is not a hobby. It is a return to the original assignment. Now picture this, your tilapia grilling over coals on a Saturday afternoon. Fresh dill from the pot on your porch, a flatbread warming beside the fire, lemon from a neighbor's tree. You just made the same meal Peter ate on the shore of Galilee, and every ingredient came from your own hands. Do not overthink this. If all you do today is open a can of sardines and eat them on toast, you have already taken the first step. People have been doing this for 3,000 years without YouTube. You will be fine. 2,000 years ago on the shore of a lake in northern Israel, a man knelt beside a fire. He cooked fish for his friends. He did not reach for a supplement. He did not consult a nutritionist. He used what God put in the water. 3 times more vitamin B12 than salmon, 50 times more calcium, 8 times more iron, less mercury, a fraction of the cost. The same fish that was good enough for Jesus, for Peter, for the 5,000. And it is still here, still swimming, still waiting on the shelf for someone to remember what it is. The water is still full, the fish are still swimming, the fire is still warm. Go feed someone. If this story changed the way you look at the simple foods in your pantry, please subscribe and like this video. We are uncovering the history and the wisdom that the modern world has tried to bury. Let us cultivate a healthier future together. The next treasure from the ancient world will be revealed soon.